What's happening, guys? Happy Wednesday and welcome to the Dynasty WarZone, the People's Dynasty podcast. On today's show, we are going to be covering some startup tips, including the startup that my co host and I are rolling through right now. But you know, my co host, he is the man of the hour and the man with the power. He is Jerry Sinclair. Jerry, what is good? I stole that from the boys at the FF Dynasty.
Well, bless their sweetheart too. I'm doing absolutely fantastic. In a startup, we're going to talk startups, and in truth, this is one of the most critical podcasts that we do because the startup is a fundamental aspect of the game that we play, and it is one of the biggest issues that a lot of players have because there is nothing that can absolutely screw a team up faster than the startup.
A large part of our demographic is males. I don't know if you knew that or not, but a large number of people here in the DWZ family, not only patrons, but also regular listeners, large number of males. Probably not going to surprise you too much. Do you know what males have in common as it relates to sex and startups in Dynasty fantasy football leagues?
What are you setting me up for?
The average person thinks they're better at it than they really are.
Yeah, that's fair.
So never a bad time to ask for advice. And here's the thing. When will this show actually air? I don't know. See, this is an evergreen topic. So Jerry and I, we are recording twice now in 3 nights. And we're going to have an extra show in the tank, if you will. But you would not have missed this whenever you're listening to it. Could be in February, could be in March, who knows? But had you been a regular subscriber over at the Dynasty WarZone YouTube channel, you would have had this live on February 22nd. That's right, 2/22/22 could have been there. Still doing mostly a lot of live streams. Again, just everybody's schedule is pretty flooded right now with, I don't know, real life, work, school, baseball, kids, life. But hey, we're still pumping out content every single week on YouTube, whether it be the Rookie Rundown with our boy Dallas, the Dynasty WarZone with Jerry and myself, the Dynasty War Games pod, which Jerry did do a guest host a couple of weeks back.
I did. They took pity upon me, and not to throw any spoilers, but it was nice to not get punched around the whole show. You're good at it. They took pity upon me. It was nice of them.
Well, I mean, my meanness towards you is not like actual meanness. That's how you are with family. It's one of those things is I can give you the business, but no one else better damn sure give you the business. That's how this works, Jerry. So head over to YouTube, youtube.com, search Dynasty WarZone. You'll find the channel. You'll see a lot of thumbnails of myself, Jerry, always wearing his black DWZ hat. I like to mix it up. Currently, before I hit record button, I was wearing my son's travel baseball team hat, but I switched into a Yeti hat. You should just turn into the YouTube just for the hat collection. Our boy G from the Aussie guys often comments on the number of hats that I own. If you look in the background on my bookshelf, there's not books. It's hats. It's hats. So tune into YouTube. Always get these shows early, ad-free, except for the Patreon. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, Jerry. But startup season is here, man. The Super Bowl's over. I don't want you to give any tips, but we're gonna get into your specific strategy here in just a second. But how are you feeling drafting this close to the end of the season and before NFL free agency and the rookie draft?
I think it's fine for the most part. I think the only things that are really going to get affected are sort of those middle-ish rounds. The top of the draft where you're setting your foundation. I think those are going to be firm, and they should be good no matter what. I mean, players like Deshaun Watson and Aaron Rodgers matter, Alvin Kamara too, but for the most part, it's all going to be about the same. It's a little risky, but that's part of the fun.
Well, first of all, normally this is where we have a little segment we like to call Good People, Bad Tweets. We don't have any. So if you want us to get back to that, help us. Jerry and I'd love to sit around like a bunch of degens just scrolling Twitter all day looking to crack someone's ass, but we can't. So if you see something that you want addressed, send it to me. I'm at DWZ Memphis on Twitter. Jerry's at JerrySendDWZ. The show is at Dynasty WarZone. Send your good person with a bad tweet to any of those, and Jerry and I will make sure to address it. So one thing I do want to cover. So the day we recorded this, it came out that Aaron Rodgers was going to appear on the Pat McAfee show. And Jerry, what little bit I saw on Twitter today, that just news alone, between that and a really weird cryptic Instagram post, kind of set Twitter ablaze.
I mean, Twitter will let anything set Twitter ablaze. So I mean, it's understandable that they did. We're going to grab for every little tiny piece of news that we can for the next couple of months. But yeah, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is just going to do Aaron Rodgers things, and the cryptic Instagram is just put another tool on his belt of all the past instances of this.
Well, allow me to turn this into a modified good person, bad tweet, but this is just about Twitter in general. Knock it off. We're all sitting around clamoring, hoping Aaron Rodgers is going to say something on Pat McAfee so you can break the story. Here's the thing. No one gives a shit, because you know who's going to get all the credit? Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport. Maybe there was at one time where Adrian Wojnarowski, the NBA guy, scooped Adam Schefter on a story. That may happen. Here's the thing. If you're waiting to run to Twitter to share your immediate reaction to what Aaron Rodgers does or does not do, you're wasting your time. There's so much more productive shit you could be doing in your life. Did you really think that sitting around, all you did was help Pat McAfee drive a number? That's it. That's all you did. You helped Pat McAfee drive a number. And you encourage this type of behavior to happen again and again and again, and then again some more, and then this kind of thing just happens. So just because you're seeing little blurbs, I can understand wanting to be on the forefront, wanting to make sure you don't get burned. Like, we're doing a startup, would have been useful information if you'd have maybe been, keeping an eye on that in case Aaron Rodgers retired. But did you really think he was going to do it on Pat McAfee? Did you think that, Jerry? For 1 second, did you think he was going to retire on Pat McAfee?
No, I did not.
Well, I just don't understand. We as a species are smarter than this. I swear to God we are. It doesn't always feel like it, but I know that we as a population of men and women, children, kids, remember there is an E for expletive. If you're listening to this podcast, make sure mom and dad know. Just doing my part to keep you out of trouble, because I don't want you to be cruising around the house going, where the hell did you learn that word? Well, there's this son of a bitch named Memphis who hosts a Dynasty Fantasy Football podcast. He teaches me all kinds of colorful words. No, we don't want none of that either. But just lay out, guys. Enjoy it. Don't get too worked up. I do appreciate you wanting to be on the forefront, but that was my takeaway from the Aaron Rodgers fiasco. He's a real look at me kind of fella.
Yeah, I mean, he sort of always has been. But people are going to do what people do. We could sit here on our grandstand and we could preach out to the audience as much as we want. They're still going to do it. We're still going to have to hear about it. Every single little thing, it just happens. And then come practice time and mini camps and everything else, every single mini camp's going to get exploited and exposed in every little play and every little.
I'm just trying to give the people time back.
I know.
I'm trying to give you a few minutes of your life back. That's it. I want you to be more efficient.
It's wishful thinking.
It is. I don't know. Let's talk about the patron for a minute.
Okay.
Patreon.com/Dynasty WarZone. Jerry, we're doing a startup. Patron, lucky number 13, Dynasty. Yes, makes sense. We're a Dynasty-based show. Dynasty, sure. Superflex, tight end premium, 3rd round reversal. We stole that from Scott Fish. He's a good person, that Scott Fish. And we are in the middle of the 2nd round. Is that correct?
That is correct. I think 205-ish, somewhere around there.
Now, before we get going crazy, and we'll start covering that in just a second, this is what we do over at the Patreon. One of the things that I took great pride in, and it was a labor. It was a labor of love, but it was a labor. It was a labor that after all those leagues, no, I didn't use PayPal, Mr. PayPal. We used all these various illegal forms of paying people. Within 1 week, we had all 12 winners and all 12 second place finishers squared away. In a week, Jerry. That was a lot of work. Luckily, I was off work. I was during our holiday shutdown at my day job, but I got it done, man. I said, and that's what I said in the group chat. I said, we're going to accomplish this. We're going to get it done. I had some help from Neil, our admin, as well as some of the other patrons, because you don't always know everybody's sleeper handle.
No.
Got everybody paid. So if you're looking for a fun place, an active place, we've already got one name on the list for Patron 14. We're going to do something special for 14, Jerry. Maybe it'll be another auction. What do you think about auction?
I would love to do an auction. I've never actually done an auction.
Maybe I'll put you in charge of the auction because I did the first auction. Okay. Auctions are really a lot of fun. And we have a lot of fun over at patreon.com/Dynasty WarZone. Not only do you get a bonus podcast a week, not only do you get one-on-one help with your Dynasty rosters, you get access to the group chat, and you could be in a league with Jerry or I. And for literally $5 a month, it's as cheap could be. And you get to hang out with good people. So come check us out. Patreon.com/Dynasty WarZone. We'll be getting more leagues going soon. We'd love to have you with us. And again, one last time, Patreon.com/Dynasty WarZone. Great way to support the show. Keeps the lights on here with the DWZ Fantasy Football Network, Jerry.
True. I got some bright lights right here, too.
I can see them in the background of your trophy, but it just makes you look good. You look like a younger, slimmer Ricky Gervais right now with that beard.
The beard's going to be at the end of the road soon. I'm already done with it.
If that's not a reason to go to YouTube right now to see that I compared Jerry to a young Ricky Gervais, so there's not a better reason.
True.
But by the way, I was listening to a podcast with our sponsor, Matt Vincent of Hate Brand Goods. And he had shaved his beard off for the first time in 6 years. And he said it felt like it had too much of a part of his personality. And he said, at that point, I realized the beard had a vote. And fuck that, the beard had to go. So he shaved it off. I think it's since grown back. Matt's a great follow on Instagram. It's HVIII Matt Vincent. Great follow, funny guy. But Jerry, you're going to give the beard the old heave-ho?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going all the way down. Then you'll see that I'm actually a little bit chubbier than you think I am. So I can't shave it all the way off. It's like it's male makeup. You know, the beard is male makeup for sure.
It is. I think the biggest example of that is James Harden. Well, listen, we're about 10 minutes into this podcast. If we don't start talking Dynasty Fantasy Football, I'm going to get a 3-star review any second. So, Jerry, we started a startup. We started a startup, Patreon 13.
Yeah.
Tell us about how yours has gone so far.
Okay. I started at 107, and everybody went quarterback. 1 through 6, quarterback. So I'm staring at Lamar Jackson, and if I want to take one of the wide receivers, if I want to take Jonathan Taylor, I'm not going to pass on Lamar Jackson. I don't love him. I sort of wanted Dak, but the asshole I'm looking at took him 2 picks earlier. So I went Lamar, and I was sitting, and David Donaldson put the very next pick on, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go Jonathan Taylor. So I tried because, how many times do I talk about how I like to do the 1-year punt? But I figured since Lamar Jackson,
Jerry Sinclair is a euphemism for productive struggle, typically in a startup.
True. But Lamar Jackson scares the hell out of me. Like, it would be one thing if I had a Dak, or if I had Josh Allen, or if I had Patrick Mahomes, somebody like that, where I'm pretty secure with that one position, but Lamar scares me. So I didn't want to trade back and just get even riskier and then have to, worry about the later rounds. I figure I'll just take a shot. I'll try to get Jonathan Taylor, which is something I wouldn't normally do. And we're going to talk about my strategy, for startups later. So I ended up trading. I traded the 206, I think it is. I think it's the 206 startup pick plus my second round rookie pick, I screwed that up. 206 second round. And then my 2023 first for Donaldson's 108 in the startup and his second round rookie pick. So essentially I just swapped the rookie picks, first and second startup pick. And I took Jonathan Taylor. So I had the 107, 108, Lamar Jackson, Jonathan Taylor. Don't hate it. A little scary, a little out of my comfort zone, but I also wanted to switch it up. I felt like I had to pivot with where I was with Lamar Jackson.
Can I hit you with a sidebar for a second?
Go ahead.
People are in love with 2023 firsts already.
And I'm one of those people too. Don't get me wrong.
Okay, well, give me 37 seconds as to why people are so enamored with 2023s.
You want me to do it? I think it's
yes.
The upside of Stroud and Bryce Young at quarterback profile very much like a Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson type prospect where they can run and they can pass and they can do everything that you want. And they look much, much better. Plus you got the Bijans of the world. So you've got an elite top tier. And I think people just go gaga for that kind of stuff. So that would be my guess.
All right, I'm just curious. The other day, I got a random trade for I would be getting Saquon Barkley, and I would be giving up a 2023 first and second. I'm like, get out of here. I mean, how can you be in a league with somebody, know they host a podcast, have for years, and have no clue of their likes or dislikes? You're doing Dynasty wrong, by the way, if you're in a league like that. If you're in a league with anybody who creates content in any way, shape, form, or
listen to
fashion,
their content,
and you listen to even if just to get a feel, follow them on Twitter, get a feel for what they did, for what they do, who they like, who they don't like. I'm like, come on. I'm not saying I would give you just a first for Barkley, but I prefer to give you a second. And I understand that's not enough, but you have to understand that I don't care enough to give you more.
Right.
Because I'm just not a big Barkley guy. So anyway, don't want to segue off in that. So you've already made your first trade.
I did.
You kind of dimed me out a little bit. I will just say this. We'll go ahead and get into some of the strategy talk. For me, if you're in a super flex league, you cannot not leave the first 8 picks without a QB. You have to.
Correct.
You have to. You are obligated unless you get a king's ransom for your 101 through 108 for a quarterback. You just have to. I don't want to guess if Russell Wilson turns his career around a couple of less than Russell Wilson years the last 2 years. I don't want to guess if Deshaun Watson's going to come back and play football. I don't want to guess if Aaron Rodgers is going to get his shit together. I had the 105. I was between Dak and Joe Burrow. For me, it was pretty easy. A couple of weeks ago, we did our Dynasty breakups and sweethearts, and Dak is someone that was on my sweethearts list.
Yep.
I think that I don't know what Dak did to disappoint us so much, but you would think as a guy who finished in the top 6 as a QB in 2021, on top of missing a game, I believe he threw 39 touchdowns.
Pretty good.
And that's all on top of the defense allowing the 7th fewest points in 2021. Now, the year before, they allowed the 4th most or the 28th fewest, whatever you want to say. It wasn't good.
Yeah.
It wasn't good. So let's say water finds its level, and they're somewhere around defense 17, 18. Is that going to have to throw 42 touchdowns? I believe that Jerry Jones is going to always make sure they have a fun offense. You know, people can say defense wins championships. I don't think the Rams thought so. I think a pass rush helped win them that championship, but Cincinnati's defense wasn't all that great. They got it done with offense. So I firmly believe that if they can't bring Gallup back, they'll draft somebody or bring in a cheaper free agent. So I had no concerns about Dak. Dak is still in my top 5 of a startup. So you had your eyes on Dak as well.
I did. Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson would have been a toss-up for me. I know Lamar Jackson is scarier, but I feel like his upside is much higher. But yes, I absolutely wanted Dak, and I thought if he got by you, then I could get Dak. So I sweated your pick for a little bit, and then eventually I felt the vibration in my pocket, saw that you had spit in my face.
Well, I mean, it wasn't intentional. It's not like I said, "Hey, watch this move, kids. I'm going to drop old Gerald right."
You'll never convince me that's not
right square on his knock. I mean, and most of our patrons know if I'm in the top 8 of a startup, it's like don't even. I mean, you can send me the offer. I mean, I guess you could hit me with a Godfather offer, maybe. But I mean, really, outside the top 8 at quarterback in a super flex, how many guys do you trust? If you don't get one of the top 8, you might as well just YOLO quarterback. If I don't get one of the top 8,
correct.
I don't know when I'll post this on YouTube. Hell, it may be streaming live, but fuck it. I might as well just get Derek Carr and Kirk Cousins. Who gives a shit?
Those were literally the 2 quarterbacks I had.
Who cares? If I don't get one of the top 8 big guns in a super flex,
yeah,
okay. Because I think people are going to overdraft Matt Stafford. I think he's going to go way higher in startups right now this time than he did this time last year. Maybe by now I think the Rams deal was done.
Yeah, he absolutely will. I don't think that's a question.
Here's the thing. I will tip my mitt to you. I'll be looking somewhere between wide receiver and another quarterback. If there's a quarterback I like, then I'll reach. I'll go ahead and pick up my second because I'm just not going to worry about it. There's tons of wide receivers, literally tons. I'm just drafting points in my roster each and every week. That's all that I care about when I'm doing a startup. So, Jerry, we promised these people some good strategery tips for a startup. And so our number one biggest takeaway is if you are in a super flex draft, if my opinion, I'll just go ahead and wrap this up as one of mine. One of my things is that if I don't get one of the big 8, I'm going to punt the position. I'm going to hammer a lot of running backs and wide receivers. If rookie picks are included in your draft, which I don't remember if this one is or not.
They are not.
So you still have your rookie picks already, and the rookie players are not in the draft.
Nope.
So we'll have a separate rookie draft with this league.
Yep.
But these are the things that you need to know because there's no quarterbacks in this league that I'm taking. I'm just going to hammer running backs, wide receivers, running backs, wide receivers, running backs, wide receivers. And then, about a round before they start going crazy, especially if I'm on the end, like 101 through 103 or 110 through 112, I'm going to look at one of those wraparound ends and I'm going to double tap my QBs.
I can dig it.
And I don't want to give this away, so only Jerry's going to know my strategy. Any of the patrons that are listening, regular YouTube, what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to wait on QB more than likely. I'm going to go with my bullpen theory. I got my ace. I got my starter. And if I walk away from this draft with some combination of Baker Mayfield, Daniel Jones, and Mac Jones, or Derek Carr, I'm fine with that. I'll walk away with 3 or 4.
It's going to look like every roster you have.
And if you're doing startups right now, this is the kind of year in a super flex league, you can take a swing on a guy like Jameis Winston, a guy like Mitch Trubisky, a guy like Marcus Mariota. Those kind of guys, if you walk away, those guys could very well. The more I listen to, and this is, by the way, this is no show sheet. This is a show sheet free podcast for Jerry and I. Normally, I'm very topic, and it's like very regimented, and we talk about this and we talk about that and we talk about not this one. We're just free flowing. So I was listening to my guy, John Middlecoff. He hosts the 3 and Out podcast. He was an ex-NFL scout. He used a term, Jerry, this week that I had never heard before, but I liked it. You ready?
Yep.
Quarterback inflation. Now, we've all dealt with a tad bit of inflation here in the States over the last, 6 months, give or take. But he talked about quarterback inflation. And what he meant is that the value of quarterbacks has inflated so much that we are drafting guys who should be second and third round picks in the first round of the NFL draft. And I refuse to do it. I don't care where these NFL teams, because there are teams that cut bait on so let me just paint like a hypothetical for you. Are you ready?
Shoot.
Your Detroit Lions. They draft a guy like Sam Howell. All right. They draft Carson Strong, second round, maybe the 32nd pick of the first round, right?
Yep.
They draft Sam Howell. Well, you go to your rookie draft in May and you're like, doldy. Oh, I'll take Sam Howell. He got first round NFL draft capital. So did Josh Rosen. And then if Detroit sucks next year, Jerry, is there a real world where Detroit could suck next year?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a world where Detroit could wind up with the 101 or the 102 overall in the NFL draft?
Yeah.
And do you think the fact that they had used the NFL draft capital on Sam Howell, you think that would stop them from taking a guy like Bryce Young or CJ Stroud?
I do not.
No, it wouldn't. You know what? And if a team like, and I don't know that this would happen necessarily, but what if the Bears do a royal tank job? What if the Bears, I mean, they're losing, at least as of now, 3/5, 60% of their starting offensive line. Their only returning weapons are Cole Kmet and Darnell Mooney. It's not like they're setting Justin Fields up for success. Mm-hmm. You think if the Bears have a really shit stain of a year, you think they're going to, make hard decisions when it comes to the 101 and 102?
They will be considering it.
And these are all things that if you overinvest in these rookie quarterbacks, especially in a startup now, this is Dynasty, kids. It's not redraft with flair. It's Dynasty. So be very careful with quarterbacks, Jerry. There's a quarterback rant for you. So I'm kind of tipping my mitt a little bit. What's another piece of advice that you would be applying to this current startup we're doing?
This is what I would say. And this goes for every startup. And it needs to be said for everyone that has ever played in a Dynasty league or is wanting to start playing in a Dynasty league. If you go into your startups, you need to not have a plan. I mean that because the board, unbelievable shit will continue to happen. There will be players going earlier than you think they ever should. There will be reaches. There will be falls. There will be trades. You need to wing it as best you can and as smart as you can and take it one step at a time. There is never one outside of, like you said, the quarterbacks in the first 7-8 picks. I agree. If you fall into one of those categories and it's a super flex draft, you need to have one of the big boys. But you need to adjust to your own situation. Like I said with Lamar Jackson. Like Lamar Jackson, one of the good guys, but he scares the shit out of me. So I adjusted what I normally would do because of that. And you need to do that with every single pick. You can't, I like to say that I'm going to do the productive struggle, the Jerry punt, as I like to call it. That's only because the draft dictates that I do that. What I don't go into any draft doing is deciding that I'm going to do that or that I'm going to decide to win year one. Let the draft board dictate how that's going to go for you. See, we had Jonathan Taylor go at 108. I am going to guess that in 19 out of 20 leagues, Jonathan Taylor is going sooner than that. I wouldn't be entirely surprised to see Jonathan Taylor go at 102 in some drafts. I think that's fucking stupid, but not everybody does. So you need to adjust every step of the way, just like Dynasty. Values change week in, week out, every news cycle. The draft changes pick by pick. So you need to adjust accordingly. That's what I would say, is do not pigeonhole yourself into one way, because sometimes the draft just simply does not do it, and you're trying to jam a round peg into a square hole, and it's not going to work. You're going to end up with a subpar mediocre team. And if you're not a person like me that actually enjoys to rebuild a roster and try to recover it, you're going to have an orphan. And I hate that. There is nothing that I hate more than an orphan, because I am so adamant about trying to rebuild correctly. Randall, thoughts? You gave me a look like I was
for the record
full of crap, but
your boy Memphis does not hate orphans. I love children. All children. Jerry. It was Jerry
YouTube's
Sinclair.
Gonna find us because I said I hate orphans.
Who said he hates orphans? He means in the Dynasty context.
Yes, he does.
Jerry Sinclair, actual sweetheart. I'm going to piggyback off of one of yours before I get into one of mine. It's kind of a twofold. Okay, if you draft a certain player, I get not having a plan, but if you draft a certain player, you're building your roster a certain way. If you draft Cooper Kupp, you are drafting a win now roster. You're not playing for 2 years from now, because Cooper Kupp is going to turn 29 this summer. You're probably going to get 2 more good years. Cooper Kupp is not a productive struggle asset. And this is always the caveat I get, and I always want to strangle somebody. I want to take these mitts and I want to put it around their neck, and they'll go, "Oh, just trade him later." I'm like, hey, dumbass. If someone valued him in the league as much as you do, he'd be gone by now. Hello? It's the startup. This is the apex of when people draft. This is what your league mates tell you that they value this guy. You didn't get a value taking Cooper Kupp in the 3rd round. So if you draft Cooper Kupp, yes, you can not have a plan, but you need to have some sort of a plan, because that decision needs to impact one down the road. We're playing chess, not checkers. Oh, right. Crap, I got Derrick Henry and Cooper Kupp on this roster. I better, invest in some more win now pieces. And I better not move a lot of my future draft capital, because I drafted a 29-year-old wide receiver and a 27-year-old running back. Now, these guys are awesome, but I'm going to need that draft capital. Either A, I'm going to need that draft capital later in the draft, or I'm assuming not in the draft, but later in the season, so I can make a move in season. Because how many times, Jerry, have you seen a fellow GM build a roster of this win now in February, than to see a guy blow an ACL in camp? And then you have no draft capital, right? And then you can't trade that guy for draft capital because he's hurt. You put yourself in a really bad spot. So if you're gonna build a win now roster, cool. Hang on to your futures.
Yeah. Let me clarify 2 things. One, you're on the clock, so we're gonna get a Randy draft pick this episode. 2, yes, no. So don't go in with one strategy is what I need to clarify that. Before the draft begins,
your strategy will define itself.
Yes. And I'm going to I'm just going to steal it and go back to back, because this is a perfect segue into my second one. Is once you have a plan, you need to commit to your plan. If you trade away your first in 2023, like I did in this draft, I am no longer in the productive struggle game, because your first round pick is the one asset that you can control. Any player can blow an ACL, or any player can punch somebody in Vegas, or, do whatever. Your 101 pick that next draft class will always be the 101 if you have a crap team. So, yes, like you said, if you take Cooper Kupp, if you take Derrick Henry, or you take Alvin Kamara, or, whoever it is, Dalvin Cook, you are committing yourself to winning. If you trade away your 2023 first, you are committed to winning. You are no longer in the reproductive struggle game. So I agree. So don't go in with a strategy, but once it is starting to play out, which it will in the first 3 rounds, about what you are doing, you need to stick with it. Like David. Like I traded David, and he gained my 2023 first, and in his first 2 picks, Randy, Trevor Lawrence and CeeDee Lamb, plus he gained a first. He's got a good young team. He's got additional assets. I like the way that's shaping out for him so far. Like, is he likely to win year 1? We'll see how the rest of it goes. Trevor Lawrence is a little scary, but as a foundation, he has good pieces. And in mine, I have Lamar Jackson and I have Jonathan Taylor. The first is gone, so I can't worry about that. I just have to pound winning players this year as best I can.
Well, I'm looking at the board, and I don't disagree with you, but I'm looking at the board, and I really don't want to make this draft pick.
Okay.
So why don't you jump in the group chat and say, hey, Memphis said this pick's on the board. How about that?
I can do that.
Because not that I don't want to make the pick. So currently we are at the 208. So what we got? We got 12 and 7. So 19 players off the board. And this, to me, it really feels like a dead zone for me. And by the way, the rookies are in this league, Jerry. I know I don't want to scare you off.
They are?
But yes, Brees Hall is the 38th player on the board.
Oh, okay. All right. Just
so
kidding.
I'm looking for a trade here. So I want to say that for right now. So I'm not ready to pick. If I had to pick, I mean, I've got Dak Prescott. But the thing of it is like I would have loved to have stacked him with a CD Lamb who went 2 picks in front of me to you, or actually to the guy you traded with. So I will refrain from making this pick until maybe I can get a little action on it, because I would love to trade back, because right now, according to Sleeper, which I think Sleeper's asleep, but let's Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara. So you're Tyreek Hill. So you're looking at, 3 guys going into year 6 of their career. Same with Cooper Kupp, Austin Eckler, Devontae Adams, Derrick Henry. I will tell you that if someone was putting chrome to my dome, gun to my head, it'd probably be AJ Brown right now. And I don't like that. So I'm going to let this pick marinate, Jerry. But I'm going to give you my next pick, and this is my next strategy, and I've actually violated that right now. So little peek behind the curtain. I left work today, came straight home, grabbed my son. We went to a 3-hour baseball practice. So my sheet, I was not expecting to pick again tonight. So my sheet is sitting on my desk at work. So I always go in. I search, and I've said this for many years on this podcast. I go in to Mike Clay's. So just search on ESPN, Mike Clay, ESPN Dynasty rankings. He ranks everybody. Not that I give a rat's ass what Mike Clay thinks, and that's nothing against Mike. He seems to be a nice enough fella.
I stood in line outside the porta potties at the FF Expo with him. He is a pretty nice fella.
He's a pretty nice fella. That's the words of one Gerald J. Sinclair. But the reason why I like his rankings is it shows you how old they'll be on day 1 of the NFL season. So you have it. So then I take that and I go through and I proactively create, and it's usually around 3 picks out. And I would start writing down, hey, these are the players I value. So, hey, 3 players out. I'm 3 picks out, and I would be the 4th pick. I'm going to go through and I'm going to rank my top 4 players that are left currently on the board. So that way, if I have to make a pick, I'm not stumped. I don't feel like I'm being rushed. And that's another tip, a little side tip, Jerry. You got 8 hours. In this case, the clock shuts off at midnight. So I don't have to make a pick till tomorrow morning. What is served to make this pick right now?
It's so fun to draft.
Is the draft stop? Do you want to trade for this pick?
I don't know. I'm sure I probably will at some point.
Well, what do you got? What do you have to offer?
Man, I'm not. No. Not while we're live, because you're going to swindle me. You're a swindler. Randy once sold me a ketchup popsicle while I had my white suit on. I'm not doing that.
This is true. But you look good in that white suit.
Here's the question, though. Morally,
if
you trade for a pick, do you have to pick it immediately?
Yeah, that's bullshit. I will 100%. I will throw the flag.
Okay.
So let's just say hypothetically I swindled you or made a deal with you, whatever terminology you want to use. Let's say hypothetically you and I made a deal. Okay. Let's say you and I made a deal. The minute that the deal's done and you know it's done, you need to push the button. You don't need to. And we have a good friend in the league mate who does this shit, and it drives me crazy. Hey, I'm just going to see if anybody else wants this. And I'm like, look, dude, if anybody else wanted it, You would have already had action. You would have been in a bidding war, but they didn't. No one's going to give you a 10, or not a 10x, excuse me, a 10% markup.
No.
What are you trying to do?
And they just saw the market value of the pick.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Gerald. Thank you. So
no, because I traded for David's pick. I picked it in 1 second because that's
you had a target.
You don't trade for the pick and then put it on the board.
That is all right. So you have another tip besides porta pot stories with Mike Clay? Anything else?
No, but that was a good one. I was a little inebriated for that, so I only remember bits and pieces of it. That was a good night. We had a good time. Everybody, you should book your tickets and hang out with us again next year. But
yeah, we got to that. I mean, if you have the means and you can get to Canton, Ohio, was it the 14th and the 15th or the 13th, something like that?
Tell you. I don't know.
Yeah, I can tell you if you try to book a room at the event hotel, booked, solid. I looked the other day. I've got
Good guy.
Yeah, it's sold out. So anyway, another tip, Jerry. Another tip for these good people.
I did too. What's your second one?
My second one, I said that the draft sheet. You have to have a draft sheet.
Oh, okay.
You need to be creating tiers.
See, this is why I'm a shitty startupper because I do not do it.
You need to make sure. I mean, again, and we kind of mixed in the other one of. I'm not a big trade back guy.
You're not. I mean, I know that, but you're just against it. Or
I'm very strategic. I'm not going in here looking to blow this draft board up. But I'm going to look at a handful of guys. Like last year, my guy, I got him in just about every startup was Cooper Kupp. I love Cooper Kupp. But this is the area of the draft where I absolutely hate in startups. And I see we have several of our patrons in the YouTube chat. Hi, patrons.
In the league. In the
league of all things.
And you said if you know content creators that you should listen to it because they'll talk about it.
That's why if you're getting that ass beat in a Dynasty league, it might be by a Dynasty WarZone patron. I'm just throwing that out there. But yeah, I hate this round because where I'm expected to. So either I've got to reach to get a guy that I think is a good value in this range, or I just don't.
The problem is the second round is the elite old running back range.
It really is, and I hate that.
They're like 26 and they've been really good for 3 years, but you don't really want to pick them in a startup because you feel like the wheels are going to fall off soon. So I feel you. I understand this.
I mean, I feel like this is the range where in season or maybe 2 weeks after this league is over, I can go through and look through some and God damn it, they're in the chat. But I can go through and look at this league later, and there'll be plenty of people looking to pick up my 2023 first. So I can just go trade for one of these guys then. Yeah. But I can't just go get a player I like. So I'm going to try to trade this pick, but now everybody knows I hate this pick, and they're going to make me do something I don't want to do.
Yes,
you guys are the worst. You should trade me right now. I'll give you the 2-0. No, so I'm not going to do that to Jerry. Do you have any other piece of advice for these people?
Let's see. Off the top of my head, what do I think that people? Here's what I'll say. If you are going to Jerry punt, if you are going to, you've gotten to the point where you're 2 rounds in or 3 rounds in, and you can see that somebody's got a much better team than you are in the immediate future. Somebody has whoever, and Dalvin Cook or Derrick Henry or something, and you can see that they're going to go for it, and maybe you have a project. The one thing I will say is don't trade away your startup picks in the first 10 rounds. You need to have the same number of top 120-ish players that everybody else does. That's one of the big things that I think people screw up on when they try to do a productive struggle is they trade away their startup picks for the rookie picks. And that's not a good move. I would just move down a round or down a round and a half or whatever you have to do. So that way you still have 10 players that are in the same caliber as everybody else, plus you have the additional draft capital for the next year. That is the one thing I will say, that if you are going to struggle, usually I'm getting out of the running back range. because, like you said, they're 26, they're 27, they're elite. They're performing, but they're not going to be performing for an extremely long period of time. And if you're going to do that strategy, you need solid quarterbacks, solid wide receivers because they play a lot longer. And if you can get a tight end, get a tight end. But when people trade away 2 of their startup picks and now you've only got 8 players in that range, because after the 10th round, you're really, for the most part, not great. Would you agree with me? I mean, there's some values, but you're really throwing darts after the 10th round.
Well, I can tie this into my final startup piece is that the rookies are in here. And we're getting ready to do the 3rd round reversal in this draft. Don't be afraid to go around early on rookies. Now, you're gambling. You have to really understand who the talented players are in this draft. Now is not the time to get cute. And God darn it, and this is why I won't win this league. But you know what? This is the beauty of hosting a patron with amazing patron people. I love them. I think the world of them. So I'm going to go ahead and spill some beans, Jerry. Are you ready?
Yep, do it.
Okay. When you get into the 13th round, not even the 8th round, right? So what is that? Let's say 8 by 12 is 96. Is that good? Is my math good?
8 times 12. Yes.
Okay.
You got it.
I was joking, and you're sitting here just embarrassing.
Well, I'm posting
Jerry, you're embarrassing me in front of the listeners.
Listen, if you want me to do some ancient Roman literature, I got you. I can't do math, though. Sorry.
But I'm giving you some ranges. So you've got, in the same range, you've got David Bell, Amon-Ra, St. Brown, Darnell Mooney.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take David Bell over Darnell Mooney here. Sight unseen.
Yeah.
But I don't think a lot of people would.
Yeah,
so I'm looking at the rookies ADP. It's I won't get him, but I got to scroll back up to the top. But Breece Hall is the 38th player off the board currently right now per sleeper ADP. Treylon Burks is 41. Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Isaiah Spiller, Matt Carroll, Kenny Pickett, Jamison Williams, Sam Howell, Malik Willis, Chris Olave, David Bell, George Pickens. I mean, I'm just going to sit here and say it because I don't have a filter and we're a little off the cuff. I'm double checking to make sure I don't start F-bombing some people. Okay, good. They have Kenneth Walker as the RB2. I thought he was way down the list, behind Kyron Williams, and I was going to raise hell.
I was going to email him right now.
I'm gonna go around early on rookies, around earlier than I think they go. Breece Hall, 38. If he doesn't go in the 3rd round, that's shameful. He should. He 100% should go in the 3rd round of this draft. And if he doesn't, that's fine. But
we're not drafting rookies in the startup, but I hear you.
But then how can I can draft one right now?
No, you can't. We're doing a separate rookie draft for the rookies. They're in there, but we're not drafting them.
This feels
all right. Here's rule number 3. Know the rules of your damn league first and foremost.
That is true. I have not done all of the research, but you should trade me for this pick.
You know why I know that? Because Neil literally just shamed me 4 minutes ago while I told him to send offers for your trade.
Well, there you go.
And Dirty Randy's shaming you right now in the chat.
I'm recording a podcast.
See, Randy does all the work, so I get to chat with everybody.
We're literally recording a podcast.
So I'm only halfway recording. I'm just talking to you. And
that's the whole thing. That's why we're recording this. It's somewhat evergreen. It's somewhat timely. We're just trying to make sure we get some content ahead.
Eventually, Randy's going to do something cool, and he's not going to trust me to do a podcast by myself, and we're just going to. I
totally would. The thing of it is I have to teach you how to upload it.
My computer would probably catch fire. I wouldn't know what to do. I can't do 8 times 12. You think I'm going to know how to do that?
That is true. All right, Jerry. Anything last for these people before we get out of here?
No, what you got?
I think have fun. The biggest thing. Take it seriously. Some people will tell you not to worry about building your starting lineup. No, what you don't want to do is you don't want to put you have to pay attention to runs. It's kind of like redraft that way. We'll talk tight ends for a minute. If I miss out on the tight ends that I like, this is super tight end premium. It's 1.75 tight
Is that
end
a
premium.
one-person tier right now?
It's 3-ish.
See, but no.
Two and a half.
Are you personally? There's no way it's 3-ish.
There's for me where they'll go. So there's a big 4.5, right? So you got Andrews, you got Kelsey and Kittle, you got Pitts and Waller.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of these guys I'm not sure of, so that's where the half comes in. I feel comfortable at least of about 4 of them, but I'm not going to draft those guys where I think they should go, including your boy Hawkinson.
I agree.
I would rather just lay out and get like 2 or 3 of Mike Gesicki and Zach Ertz and Dawson Knox.
Is there a situation, because you're like, he went 112 in this league, and I'm not opposed to where he went either. But
is that Pitts?
If you're in that situation, are you against taking someone like Kyle Pitts? Like
yes.
Jamar Chase was off. Are you? Jamar Chase is off the board. Justin Jefferson's off the board.
Yes.
Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, you're a hater.
Yes.
I don't do it, but I feel like I just hate my roster when I take a tight end early like that, so I don't ever do it.
It never looks good. It never looks good. It's the equivalent of getting a little too liquored up, taking another person home, whatever, men, women, whatever you're into, as long as it's not illegal, I don't care. And even then, as long as it doesn't affect me, you take that person home, and it feels like a really good idea at the time. And then you wake up the next morning and you're like, what the did I do? That's kind of how I feel whenever I draft a tight end too early in a startup or even in a draft in general. It feels good. It feels good at the time, but then when you sober up and you take a step back and you look at it and you're like, what have I done?
My problem is sort of the same thing. Like once I get to the 5th round, I'm looking at my team and I'm like, shit. Shit.
And then you feel this urge to overcorrect.
Yeah.
And so I just don't. I'm just going to go.
It's just not my comfort zone. I think that's
there are so many tight ends that I like.
I hate everyone.
Well, that's the whole thing. Now, I'm cheap. I'm notoriously frugal, as you know from playing. I would love to walk away from this draft with one of the big tight ends.
Oh yeah.
But I'm going to be totally happy walking away with Mike Gesicki. And another guy that I love is Harrison Bryant. I totally see in Cleveland letting Austin Hooper go. Another guy, I mentioned him on our patron pod the other night, but I won't put this out for podcast consumption for a while. Noah Gray. If I can walk away with Noah Gray as like my tight end 4, I love it. When not Mike Gesicki, but when Kelsey missed the game due to COVID in week 16, Noah Gray played a 72% snap share. I believe this is the last year of Kelsey's contract, and he's like 32. Yeah. Do you think they can afford to bring him back? Or do you go with the 3rd-year guy? And then, so that's what I'm saying. I'm just going to gamble on the upside athletic rookie tight end or the young guy tight end. So
I'm fine with that.
I just can't.
Like, I think that's personal choice, though. Like, I don't think Kyle Pitts going in those spots is that terrible of a value. He should be relevant and should be a pretty badass asset to have. He's just not. It's not something I can do, not confidently.
No.
I just hate it. I hate when I look at my roster and I'm like, now I'm picking between either a shit second wide receiver or a shit second running back, and it just gives me anxiety. My hair is going to fall out. I don't want to deal with that stuff.
Unless you have really stringent starting requirements for like 3 wide receivers.
Yeah.
Like the league, like this league should be start 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 1 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 1 super flex, and then 5 additional flexes. In that type of format, I'm going to leave this league with like maybe 5 wide receivers that I really like. And then outside of that, I'm going to hammer every cheap, low-cost, upside running back. Because you know what? Nobody ever wants your wide receiver 5 in a trade. But in the middle of the season, when people are competing for championships and their starter goes down, everybody wants your RB5. They're like, well, normally I wouldn't pay this much for Chuba Hubbard, but I'm kind of desperate. So here's everything. That's what happens. So I like to leave drafts with a disproportionate amount of running backs, upside guys too. I'm not looking to leave this. No, I want to make sure I clear. I'm not looking to leave with Latavius Murray, Gus Edwards, Devonta Freeman. That's
I
not what
know.
I'm talking about.
Damian Harris,
Kenneth Gainwell,
yeah.
Ramondre Stevenson, even though he looks like a slower, less athletic version of the Predator, fine. But at least he has upside in the right scenario. There's nothing about Latavius Murray that screams upside. There's nothing about Trey Sermon that screams upside. There's nothing about Raheem Mostert that screams upside. So don't overdraft those guys. That's the last thing I think I'd throw out there. I could probably think of a million others. So I didn't write this stuff down. Happens organically, off the cuff,
Yep. Yeah, I mean, dart throw running backs is always better than dart throw wide receivers. It's always going to be.
Yeah, and you're going to have so much easier time converting those things to picks.
Yep.
So, Jerry, I'm going to convert this thing to a podcast. I don't know when. Have you seen the great classic old school comedy Spaceballs?
I have. Mel Brooks.
When will then be now? Soon. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening to us rant and rave and just kind of talk in circles about startups. We're doing this all around at the time when we were starting up Patron 13. If you want to find out what we're doing from a Patreon podcast and a Patreon league standpoint, patreon.com/Dynasty WarZone. Again, you get an extra podcast every week, access to the group chat, help from myself, Jerry, if you're doing a productive struggle in like your own startup, questions about your just really a lot. And it's a great way to support the podcast. Same with Hate Brand Goods. Again, I mentioned Matt at the top of the show, just a really unique guy and someone that I find inspirational, a guy that had competed at a very high level as a Highland Games athlete, had to have a total knee replacement in like his mid-30s. And, instead of letting that get him down, he did the work, and just a super cool guy. Proud to have the podcast sponsored by his brand, which is Hate Brand Goods. That's TheHEHVIII.com. You use promo code Memphis at checkout. They have athletic functional wear, athleisure fashion wear, which I know Jerry's into, and as well as coffee mugs, bags, the whole 9 yards. So please be a pal. Head over there and check them out. Use promo code Memphis. It supports a great dude, and it supports the podcast. So, Jerry, we're going to talk about a trade as soon as I hit the stop button, and then I'm going to go to bed because, I got to go to work and get the sheet to get this thing done.
Okay. I like it.
All right. Well, on behalf of that man, his name is Jerry Sinclair. You can follow him at JerrySinDWZ. You can follow me at DWZ Memphis, the show at Dynasty WarZone. Remember to send those good people with bad tweets to any of those Twitter handles, and we'll cultivate, cull, and put the best ones on the air. You can also attach them to an iTunes or Spotify review. You can say, "Hey Memphis, hey Jerry," and I'll tell you what, Jerry, this is an impromptu show. If you post a good person bad tweet in an iTunes review, I don't care if we have to do multiple a show. We'll do them all. How about that?
I love it.
All right. So on behalf of that man, Jerry Sinclair, I am Memphis. Remember, we are just here to make the world a better place for fantasy football. We'll see you back next week.